Steven and the Stevens, the 22nd episode of Steven Universe. Very interesting kind of episode that I have some mixed feelings about, but we will get to that at the end when I am giving my summation. This episode starts out with a gem mission for something called the Legendary Glass of Time, I believe is what it was called, at a place called the Sea Shrine, which is clearly deep underwater, under the ocean. And they're looking for a particular hourglass in this entire room of hourglasses, kind of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade Holy Grail room style thing. And they don't know exactly what it looks like. They have to use deductive reasoning to figure out which one's right. If not, something will happen. We don't find out what that is. Until Amethyst, just out of nowhere, grabs one of the hourglasses and water starts flooding into the room. Now, Steven had already at this point found an hourglass that he liked, but Pearl wouldn't let him take it for exactly this reason because they didn't know if it was the correct one. But he runs back and he grabs it because his argument is that if Amethyst gets to keep hers, he should get to keep his. And they run from the main chamber back to the warp and they barely make it out and they actually bring some water back with them, which I thought was actually really cool. A little bit of detail there. And Steven says, well, can't we just go back and get it? And Pearl says something actually very interesting that I'm not sure if it means anything or not, but I'm going to point it out here because it might, and I want to see what you guys think about it in the comments. She says that they need to give the Sea Shrine 200 years to reform, which sounds a lot like it's literally going to rebuild its body the same way that Pearl did when she was poofed. But maybe that's just me, maybe it's just a common term that has different meanings, I don't know, but when that water started falling through the ceiling, it definitely looked like a part of it disappeared as if it were desummoned. Very interesting. I don't know if it's going to mean anything going forward, but it's all very interesting. And it kind of makes sense that gems might have buildings that can build themselves from a device the same way that a gem builds their body around their gem. But either way, they're unable to go back, and Steven has the Beachapalooza. This is the first time we hear about Beachapalooza to get to. He and his dad are going to be performing. So he runs to the car wash, and he finds that his dad, while trying to load Onion's father's boat into the car wash to clean it, caused all kinds of damage to the building and isn't going to be able to perform with Steven, and Steven's all bummed out. And as he's walking back home, he says, I wish that I could warn Dad and that this wouldn't happen, or something along those lines, and poof, he disappears, and he's back at the car wash before the accident happened, and he realizes that the hourglass he picked is the Legendary Glass of Time. However, preventing the damage to the car wash actually ends up damaging it even further, so he ends up going back in time again to stop himself from going back in time the first time. And this happens a few times. I'm not going to go over the exact causality of everything, but regardless, he goes back in time a total of 3 times, so we end up with 4 Stevens. And, of course, what else are you going to do when there is 4 of you but form a band? It's just such a Steven-y thing to do. There isn't even another answer. Of course that's what he would do. But like all bands, they have a falling out eventually, and it escalates very, very quickly into this all-out war between Stevens, each of which has a duplicate of this time device in their possession and can keep jumping through time, creating more duplicates of Steven until they're back at the Sea Shrine, and there's a whole bunch of them all fighting at once. And Steven realizes the only way to stop it is to destroy the Legendary Glass of Time. And so he breaks it, and the timeline collapses on itself and repairs itself, and all of the other Stevens disappear. A new timeline is created where the Legendary Glass of Time never returned to the temple with him. Everything's gone. And he instead ends up forming a band with the Crystal Gems. Steven and the Crystal Gems. They actually sound really good together. It was really cool. And just find this song somewhere online and listen to the lyrics. The song that he sings with them at the end. It's a cute song, but it's kind of creepy at the same until you dig a little deeper into it. But hey, that's the entire series. But in my opinion, there is just as much wrong with this episode as there is good with it. Because now time travel has been introduced to this universe. Yes, they destroyed this one device, but we are never explicitly told that this is the only time travel device in existence. Why would the only time travel device in existence be on Earth, first of all? There's almost definitely more of them, and that just presents so many possibilities. Positive, negative. Time travel itself is effectively the ultimate weapon, because this object doesn't just let him travel back in time to the same location he's in, it also allows him to travel through space, and we're not given any explicit limit to this. Theoretically, someone in possession of one of these devices could do anything they wanted. And this is the exact same problem I had with the duplication wand. It solves far too many problems, and probably shouldn't have been introduced to the lore of this series. However, it shouldn't have been introduced to the lore of this series for all the same reasons that the duplication one shouldn't have been introduced to the series, just contextually different. So I'm not going to go over the top ranting about this again. You've already heard it. I'm just going to move on and say that while this episode I think was better than Onion Trade, I still feel like it suffered from the same kinds of problems, and for that reason I don't really like this episode, and I don't really consider it much when dealing with the lore of the series. I treat it as kind of a one-off type of thing. But guys, what did you think of this episode? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.